The wording in this bit is a bit dramatic. It actually says that they can use your photos, videos and audio throughout the universe. If you've ever been on a cruise, you have signed this contract, probably without realising it, and I very much doubt that you have read it. Some of these cruise contracts are so long and no one reads them apart from me. I read a full cruise contract for this video, start to finish, and I think it was about 13 pages long. In this video, we're going to have a look at all the things that you're agreeing that you will do, you won't do, and some things that are just a bit odd. The first thing that you agree to that I don't think anyone actually realises is that you agree to only take things on the cruise that are reasonably necessary for a cruise. I guess they say this to stop people from showing up with about 15 different bags. Everyone has a different opinion on what is reasonably necessary for a cruise, but that is actually in your cruise contract. It's impossible to go on a cruise without virtually signing this cruise contract. When you purchase the cruise, you're automatically agreeing to all of these terms. Cruise lines don't normally have a limit on how much you can take actually on the cruise. If you're flying, of course, you will have restrictions on how big and how many bags you can have, but the actual cruise itself, you normally can take as many bags as you want. I do know people who take 4 or 5 bags for one person on a cruise. I would deem that to be not necessary for a cruise, but those people would deem their 18 pairs of shoes very, very necessary. It is a grey area, but it is written into your cruise contract that you promise not to take anything that is not reasonably necessary for your cruise. Say you're on a cruise, you are sitting, you're eating dinner, you notice someone filming, maybe they're doing a new TV commercial, maybe they're doing a training video for the staff. You have signed the contract which says that they're allowed to use any video of you, audio of you and pictures. This is in almost all cruise lines contracts and I don't think anyone realises that. They're very, very unlikely to secretly film you doing something embarrassing and then put it on Facebook. That's probably not going to happen. In reality, if this did actually happen, you would probably just be in the background while they're filming a training video or something promotional. It's not really anything to worry about, but I just think it's interesting that any photos of you, video of you and audio of you is completely owned by the cruise line and they can do whatever they want. The wording in this bit is a bit dramatic. It actually says that they can use your photos, videos and audio throughout the universe. The entire universe. It actually says that they can use your photos, videos and audio in any medium of any nature. Who knows what that means? Maybe that means they can use pictures and videos of you in mediums that haven't even been invented yet. Maybe they'll be making a hologram of you just eating dinner. I don't know. I should point out that they can do all of these things without any compensation to the guest. Because of course they're not going to pay you. If you're on their cruise, you have to agree to this. The contract of course says that you can't take things like firearms, you can't take fireworks, you can't take any live animals or anything that is illegal. I think that makes perfect sense and do not try and break any of these rules. Don't try and smuggle anything on a cruise ship, that is a ridiculously bad idea, and definitely don't smuggle live animals. That's not only illegal but also very, very mean. We all miss our pets, but it's not worth trying to smuggle them on a cruise. They won't have a good time. Leave them at home. One thing that I found a bit strange when I was reading this contract is that it says that you promise not to take any tools of the trade or household goods on a cruise. I'm not sure what household goods or tools of the trade people are taking on cruises, but that makes me think of someone trying to take a spade and a refrigerator. It makes no sense. I guess in reality they mean things like don't take an iron on board. Irons are big no-nos for cruises because they are a massive fire risk. But I did find it very interesting that this is actually written into your contract that you can't take on board any household goods. The cruise lines also say that you shouldn't take anything particularly valuable. Don't take expensive jewellery and documents that you can't replace. Definitely don't check those in and have them taken to your cabin for you. When you board a cruise, you'll probably take on board a little bag, an embarkation day bag, and I would always very strongly suggest that you keep in there things like your passport, your phone, your camera, things that you really, really don't want to lose or get broken. Keep them on you. The cruise line isn't really responsible for what happens to your luggage. Of course, if they were particularly negligent and something went wrong, they probably would refund you your suitcase or something like that. But it's not worth taking the risk. Keep anything particularly valuable on you. The cruise line has said in their cruise contract that they're not taking any responsibility for any expensive jewellery, any documents, any precious metals, it says, in case you're trying to take on some precious metals. When you go on a cruise, there are loads of things you can do. You can have your hair cut, you can go in the spa, you can have your photos taken, and I always assumed that those people were employed by the cruise line. It turns out that in most cases they're not. They're employed by a third party, and the cruise line says in their contract that they're not accepting any responsibility for anything that any of these third party employees do. So if you went on board and you had a terrible haircut or an awful massage, or they planned a wedding and it was awful, if those people are not employed by the cruise line, you can't hold the cruise line responsible for those. You'd have to actually go to the third party company. I'm sure the cruise line would help you, they're not going to leave you on your own, but the contract says that they're not responsible for any of these independent people's actions. One thing that people get very angry about is when a cruise itinerary is changed. It says in all cruise contracts that your itinerary can be changed, it can be moved forward, it can be moved back, the ship can be changed, the itinerary can be changed. Cruises are really flexible because they have to be. Sometimes weather will mean that a cruise ship will need to go earlier, they'll need to avoid a storm, the ship might have electrical problems and they'll need to use a different ship. The cruise line has to have that flexibility built into their cruise contract or they would be in big trouble. I've been on 29 cruises so far and I would say at least 50% the itinerary has changed at some point. It's normally a port that's cancelled due to bad weather, and because it's written in the contract, no one can really blame the cruise line. It's not the cruise line's fault. There are of course exceptions to this, and you can sometimes get travel insurance that does cover missed ports, but generally speaking you can't blame the cruise line if they move your cruise forward a week, back a week, they change the ship, they change the itinerary. They'll normally offer you a refund if they completely change the itinerary, but they don't have to. According to the actual contract, they don't really have to do anything, and you're signing that when you book a cruise. If you have booked excursions with the cruise line and then a cruise port is cancelled, the cruise line will normally refund your excursions. If you've booked independent excursions and your port is cancelled, the cruise line isn't liable for that. The cruise line doesn't accept any responsibility from anything that comes out of them changing the itinerary. That is one of the main reasons why they do try and push people towards doing ship excursions. I would still stick with the independent ones because they're much cheaper, but you are always taking a risk there and you would be left with whatever cancellation policies your independent provider has. It is really important when you go on a cruise that you stay where you're supposed to stay. It's a bit of a shame that this actually has to be written into the contract, but I suppose they have to cover themselves. It says you cannot under any circumstances go into the staff only areas. That makes perfect sense. The staff have a job to do, they can't just have passengers wandering around. I do understand though that it is very interesting to see what it's like in the staff quarters, to see what it's like working on a cruise ship. I do have a friend who's working on Royal Caribbean at the moment, and I will link to his channel in the description. If you do fancy having a sneaky peek and having a look at what it's like to stay in a crew cabin, definitely check out his videos. That's a much safer option than just barging in. If you did go into the crew only areas, you would be in big trouble. You probably would be disembarked at the next cruise port. You might be banned from the cruise line forever. It's definitely not worth doing it. There's nothing that interesting there that it's worth being banned from a cruise line or left in a random country because the cruise line doesn't want you back on. If a passenger is deemed as being dangerous, either to themselves or to the other passengers, the cruise line has the right to quarantine them, which has been happening a lot lately in the news. I won't mention why because that will get my video demonetized by YouTube, but we all know why people are being quarantined on cruise ships at the moment, and if you don't, I'll link to my video in the description. But anyway, if you are being a danger, they can keep you in your cabin, they can search your bags, they can search your cabin, they can pretty much do anything to maintain the peace on board and to make sure that everyone is safe. Safety is 1000% the most important concern for all cruise lines, cruise ships, cruise employees, and if they have to restrain someone or keep someone in their cabin to do that, they will. And you're agreeing to it by booking a cruise. Cruise ships do actually have really small jail cells sometimes, and they normally have security on board, so if you were kicking off or starting a fight or trying to steal things or something, they could in theory put you in the little jail cell, and they're completely within their rights just to disembark you whenever they like. Please let me know in the comments if you actually knew these things. I didn't. I've never read my cruise contract before, but now I'm glad that I have. Thank you for watching this. Please subscribe. I bring you a new video every single week. That's cruise tips, tours, and videos just like this one. Thank you for watching this, and goodbye.